Hey YouTube, welcome back to another of my videos. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the LGBTQ plus representation in The Last of Us Part 2. Also, if you have not finished or watched or done whatever you want to do with The Last of Us Part 2, if you do not know how that ends / how it goes or anything, please do not watch this video because I am about to spoil the whole game on you. If you're all cool with that and you've played the game and you know all the spoilers and you love / hate the ending, perfect, you can watch this video. So with that out of the way, let's get into what I thought about the representation in The Last of Us Part 2. So before The Last of Us Part 2 came out, obviously we had The Last of Us Part 1, or just The Last of Us, and then of course that game hit critical acclaim. Loads of people loved that game. So of course when the trailer dropped for The Last of Us Part 2, the internet lost their shit. Some people were not happy with the trailer because it included a scene where Ellie kisses Dina. However, despite that criticism, Naughty Dog stuck to their guns and they wanted Ellie to be gay in the game. They wanted Dina to be her girlfriend, and that's the narrative that they went with, and I'm glad that they stuck to their guns and they just disabled the comments and just continued running with it. I'm glad that they didn't back down and go, oh wait, no, they don't want it, we'll take it out of the game. However, this wasn't even the first time that Ellie had been shown to be gay. If you played The Last of Us Remastered on PlayStation 4, you would have got the DLC, which is called Left Behind. So in this DLC, it is revealed that Ellie is gay when she kisses Riley. So let's look at how Dina and Ellie's sexualities are represented in this game. So Ellie is out as a lesbian in the game. It doesn't explicitly say anywhere that she's a lesbian, but it's kind of clear that she is through like different dialogue and different interactions that happens. And then Dina is bi. I think it's amazing that this is a AAA major title from a first-party studio. They have two canon queer women at the forefront of this story. Even though Ellie is a canon lesbian, it doesn't actually mention her sexuality in the game. Like, she doesn't walk into a bar and go, hi, I'm a lesbian. She doesn't say that. It'd be kind of funny if she did though. We hear that Ellie has only really dated women through a conversation that Dina and Ellie actually have at the start of the game when they're on trail, talking about their exes. This is something that I actually really liked about the game. I feel like the representation in The Last of Us Part 2 felt very, very natural. It didn't feel like it was forced. It didn't feel like Ellie was just a lesbian because there was going to be a gay character because they wanted to appeal to the audience. It felt like they kind of thought about the character of Ellie and thought, hey, well, maybe she does fall in love with the girl, and why should that take away from the fact that she's all these other things? And I think that's really, really awesome that they did that, because the representation doesn't become the sole purpose of the story. The purpose of the story is still about, you know, this kind of dark post-apocalyptic world where survival is like your top priority and stuff. So let's talk about Ellie and Dina's relationship, because that is, you know, a queer relationship that is represented in this game. Like any couple, Ellie and Dina have their ups and their downs. They do fight in the game, and we do see them fight and get back together and have things happen and stuff like that. We watch that throughout the game. I personally think that Dina and Ellie do really love each other. I mean, if you look at Ellie's like journal entries and stuff like that, it's evident that Ellie loves Dina. I mean, she even writes it, that she loves her. And I think it's also evident that Dina really, really, really cares about Ellie and loves Ellie as well. However, despite this, I can't say that their relationship is the healthiest, because it's the way Ellie deals with things sometimes that Ellie is a bad girlfriend to Dina. I think this is mostly down to the fact that Ellie is so focused on her goal of seeking revenge, you know, wanting to kill Abby because of what she done to Joel. She doesn't really take Dina's needs and wants into account. Yes, this does indeed end in Ellie and Dina breaking up at the end of the game, but you can see that Dina really, really doesn't want Ellie to leave, because after they obviously leave Abby, after that fight they have with Abby, they go to the barn, Dina has the baby, and it seems like all is well. But again, I think the reason Ellie left is because of her selfishness and that the fact that she doesn't actually take Dina's needs into account. This is actually one of the things I don't like about the representation in the game, is that Dina and Ellie don't get a happy ending. It's very rare in any media that people in the LGBTQ plus community get a happy ending. Now, I understand why Naughty Dog did this. It's a dark game. It's the kind of game that you shouldn't expect happy things to happen ever. But in the terms of LGBTQ plus representation, we don't get happy endings very often, and it would have been nice to have a happy ending between Ellie and Dina. Like, even if Ellie does go and get Abby again after Tommy told her where she was, we could have at least had that scene maybe when Ellie comes back and Dina's at the door waiting for her. And that could have been the end of the game. I understand why Naughty Dog did what they did with the ending, and personally, I did quite like the ending. The more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, understand the ending, I do get it. You know, Ellie's selfishness led her to lose everything that she cared about. I would like to think that Dina and Ellie do get back together. You do see that final shot of Ellie leaving the farmhouse. So maybe she's on her way back to Jackson to find Dina. Maybe she's not. We'll not know until maybe there's, I don't know, they said there wasn't going to be DLC, but I guess if there's the Last of Us Part 3, we might see them together. I think they have been through a lot together, but it would be nice to see a happy ending for Ellie and Dina, but you can't really count on it for The Last of Us. I also think it is important to talk about how homophobia was handled in this game, because there was a homophobic scene. We see Ellie at the beginning of the game struggling with a homophobic event that actually happened to her the night prior. This is of course the night where Ellie and Dina kissed, and so this homophobe called Seth called Dina a loudmouth dyke, just because he didn't like seeing them kiss, because it was a family dance. Ellie, you can see that she doesn't want to talk to Seth afterwards, and Maria tries to get her to, like, brings her in for Seth to apologize, and he gives her a sandwich, and it's just such an awkward scene. I completely understand Ellie's point of view in this. I wouldn't want to forcefully accept an apology from someone who was homophobic to me less than 24 hours ago. I'm glad that they included this scene in the game though, because it's real. This does happen. You can see that Ellie's hurt and she's embarrassed. I think that's why she kind of pushed Joel away as well during that night, because she was embarrassed about everything. I mean, she just wanted to kiss the girl she had a crush on, but of course it caused a reaction because homophobes. We also see Dina feeling guilty about what happened. There's a scene just before they have a snowball fight where Ellie and Dina talk for the first time after that night, and Dina actually apologizes to Ellie, and the line that really got me was when Dina says, "I shouldn't have kissed you in front of all those people." And that's sadly something, again, that LGBTQ plus people go through. We feel like we have to keep our relationships in private. We feel like we have to have a relationship in secret. From my own experience, it is quite hard to be affectionate with your partner in public, which just shouldn't be a thing, but it is. And Naughty Dog really represented this situation well, I think. This is something that we go through. It's sad, we shouldn't have to, but it is something that is very real and does happen to LGBT people in the real world. We also can't talk representation and not mention one of the best characters in the game. That is Lev. Lev is a trans man, and he is one of the main characters in Abby's storyline. I have to say, this is the first trans character that I've personally played in a video game, and I think that Naughty Dog did a fantastic job with the character of Lev. Lev is a hero. He saved Abby, so without Lev, there wouldn't be an Abby storyline. That's how important Lev is to the plot of The Last of Us Part 2. You wouldn't really have much of Ellie chasing Abby if Lev didn't save her from the scars. And this is something that I personally love about how Naughty Dog represented Lev, is that he is represented as the hero as the person that saved Abby's life. We also see Lev struggle with a few things throughout his journey with Abby. The main one being religion. Basically, Lev is on the run from this murderous cult called the Scars. I think they're called the Seraphites. Abby refers to them, and the rest of the wolves refer to them as Scars. He still has a very close relationship with his beliefs that he was brought up with. But of course, him being trans completely contradicts the beliefs, and that's what's causing the kind of conflict with his beliefs and his feelings. It's kind of that conflict that he's struggling with. So that's the reason that he had to actually run from his religion. They're quite transphobic, and they don't see him as a boy, and they're trying to get him to marry this elder. You can even see Lev in the game when Owen and everybody was just like, yeah, we're going to go to San Francisco, and his sister wanted Lev to come with them. He immediately flees back to the island because he loves his mum, and he wants his mum to be able to accept him, and he wants to be able to stay where he was born and everything. And he's struggling with that as well. He wanted his mum to accept him. This struggle with acceptance and religion is of course another thing that LGBTQ plus people go through, especially if they come out when they're part of a religious household. They will have this conflict with beliefs. So I think Naughty Dog did a really good job in showing this struggle to the player throughout the game, again without it taking away from the main storyline. There's also a part in the game where Lev is dead named, so there's some transphobia that is showcased in the game. Of course, Lev is dead named by the murderous cult that's the Scars, who are of course trying to hunt Lev down for not marrying an elder. Of course, dead naming there is without a doubt, it is horrendous. It is absolutely transphobic, but I think the way it was used in the game is completely justified. This is how we as the player find out for the first time that Lev is indeed trans. However, I do agree that there might have been a better way of showing to the player that he was trans. For example, there was that conversation between Abby and Yara, who is Lev's sister, where they talk about Lev being trans, and I think maybe that could have been the way that the player was informed, but I think being dead named from the Scars makes sense within the narrative. I think maybe for some of the players that were playing the game maybe weren't educated in LGBT issues, they'll probably, hopefully some of them would have seen this scene play out and think, wow, that was really hurtful, that must be horrible for Lev. So maybe it did change some people's opinions on matters like that, and that's of course a very good thing to do with representation, is to help educate people. I'm also going to talk about Abby for a little second. Abby looked after and accepted Lev immediately. There was no questions asked, no ifs, no ands, no buts. Abby just accepted Lev for who he was. Even after the fight where Lev is dead named, Lev asked Abby, do you hear what they called me? Do you want to ask me about it? And Abby's response is, do you want me to ask you about it? And when Lev says no, she's like, okay, completely fine. She doesn't push Lev to give her an answer and stuff or anything like that. And again, I think that representation of that conversation is so important. Trans people don't owe you anything. They just want to be able to exist and be happy. For us cis people in the room, if a trans person wants to tell us something, we should be accepting and listen. But if they don't want to tell us something, we shouldn't push them to give us answers either. So I think that representation of Abby respecting Lev's boundaries is also very important for players to see play out. Some people also thought that Abby was trans because of her body shape, because she's quite muscular, which of course isn't true. Abby is cis. Also, another thing to note is that the character of Lev is actually voice acted by a trans voice actor, which I think is amazing. I think more studios need to take a leaf out of Naughty Dog's book, and if you're going to cast someone that is trans and is going to talk about sensitive topics, please hire someone who is trans. Because for me, the character of Lev did really come to life and really stand out to me because the representation felt real, and I think part of that was because he was played by someone who was trans. Personally, I do think that the representation in The Last of Us Part 2 is good representation for the LGBTQ plus community. This game is a AAA title from a well-respected and well-renowned first-party studio from a Sony first-party studio, which means that loads of people are going to play this game. I've loved Naughty Dog's games for so long, and to see parts of myself represented in a video game like this is just amazing to me. I know some people didn't like the game because they felt like it was too politically correct. Just look at the Metacritic scores, you will see some reviews on there which is like, this is an SJW simulator, the alphabet people ruined this game, is some of the things that I've heard. But the main thing for me is that this game was inclusive without making the inclusivity the entire story of the game. I'm not saying that the representation in The Last of Us Part 2 is perfect, but it is definitely a large step in the right direction. So that was my video essay on the LGBTQ plus representation in The Last of Us Part 2. I really did love The Last of Us Part 2. I really enjoyed my time with it. If you enjoyed The Last of Us Part 1, I think you will enjoy The Last of Us Part 2. It's received a lot of mixed criticism. I think that is partly because of the representation that is included in the game, but I really enjoyed my time with it, and I think it's a fantastic game. So I would say if you like The Last of Us Part 1, you'll definitely enjoy The Last of Us Part 2. If I missed anything, or if you want to start a discussion, please put it in the comment section down below and I will be sure to read your comment and see what you have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please a big thumbs up and also subscribe to love, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.